What's up, guys? Welcome to the Real Local People podcast. We're here in the AdventuREalty studios with a special person for me today. This is my mom, Leslie Gabhart, who taught school for 35 years as a music minister at Culbertson Baptist Church and has done a lot of other stuff that we're going to talk about today. So, Mom, Leslie, I don't know how to address you. This is a weird thing. I found out it's kind of a hard thing it's a difficult thing to interview your mom because I try to come up with questions and it's like, I already know everything. So I tried to come up with a few of things we have never kind of talked about before, but there's going to be a lot of stuff that's just for the good of the audience, not necessarily for me. So anyway, for people that don't know you like I know you, who are you?
Well, I'm Leslie Gabhart, and I was a Dempsey when I was born and grew up in kind of a musical family. Lived in southern Indiana all of my life. Had a brother and a sister. Started in music lessons when I was 6 and knew that was going to be something special. Like I said, the Dempseys were a musical family. We made music around the piano and I always wanted to take piano lessons. So yeah, music was just kind of an obvious thing for a career. Mm-hmm. So, was a part of musical theater. From the time I was in second grade, was asked to do roles. My first real role was Lucy in Charlie Brown at McCullough Elementary School.
Is that the same You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown that I was in?
It certainly was.
Wow. Right.
You didn't know that
Charlie
I was
Brown
Lucy?
And Lucy. I actually did not know that. Maybe I just don't listen.
Lucy. That was my first that was my first leading role. And then played the piano some for it when I was in elementary school, but my music teacher said, "How would you like to play when you get to Wilson Junior High? She needs an accompanist." It's like, okay, sounds like fun. So I started accompanying choirs in middle school when I was in 7th grade. And then
you were accompanying choirs as a 7th grader?
Yes.
Wow. That's once again, see, I'm learning stuff already that I didn't know about my own mom. So
yeah. So started loving choir. That was in 7th grade. We had official choirs, just like you did when you were in middle school with Miss Morgan. And then always wanted to go to Jeff High because my sister had been an accompanist for John Cleveland. And I so admired him. And my mom at one time said, "You want to go to Providence? They have a great theater program." I said, "No way." I said, "I want John Cleveland," because I knew he was the master, and he was. So accompanied for him 9th through 12th grade. And my senior year decided, oh yeah, it's got to be music school. So, and my mom was a teacher, a really good teacher. So I thought, okay, music, teaching, this makes sense. So it was just easy to do that. So then taught, like you said, for 35 years until I retired.
Gotcha.
You can ask me more questions about specifics.
I know you don't like the spotlight being on you. We were just talking about ahead of time how she can stand in front of 10,000 people and talk or sing, but she's nervous about being on a podcast with her son.
With my son, yes.
So you kind of mentioned that you got started piano lessons at 6 years old, but is there a point that during your life when you realized that music just was going to be your life? Did that ever occur to you, or was it just kind of naturally happen?
It's crazy because we were talking, the girls and I, we went to the musical last night to see Peter Pan. And my friends and I, we were talking about our memories because we're old now. See, we're all retired and we're old, and we're trying to look back, and we all have great memories. But one of my first memories is having the kids in the neighborhood come in and sit at the piano, and I gave them piano lessons.
Oh, really?
Yes, I did. I mean, other people were outside playing basketball, and I was giving piano lessons.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that was no joke. Age 7, 8, 9.
Wow. We
were doing that, writing songs. We had music clubs and things like that. So, I think when I first decided that I was going to major in music in college was my sister went to U of L, and she was a piano major. And, oh my goodness, it was tough. She said, "If you're going to go to music school, study voice. It's a lot easier. She was having a tough time, and she was good.
Right.
She's an excellent pianist. So I said, okay. And then, so maybe early high school, I started thinking that was
kind of
the way I was
following
going
your
to go.
sister's footsteps was
absolutely.
a big part of it.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. We've heard that from a couple different guests who have done well at things about chasing, kind of chasing an older sibling or a parent or something like that into it, but that makes a lot of sense. That kind of leads me into, you said you were at age 6, started 7, 8, you were already giving piano lessons to kids. 7th grade, you were accompanying for that. I mean, so one of these concepts has always been kind of interesting to me is the whole 10,000 hour rule. They say you're 10,000 hours into something is when you become an expert at it. And I can firsthand say that you're an expert at really music in general, but I would say in particular, piano is what just has always amazed me. I remember I go back to the buying that book of the Ben Folds stuff try to learn on piano. And I sat at that piano for like hours trying to like get my fingers to do what it's supposed to do. And you had never even heard the songs before. And you sit down and play some Ben Folds song off of a piece of paper with a bunch of black notes, like it's straight off the recording.
It's called
and I'm
music.
Sitting here. Yeah. But it's just unbelievable to me that you can turn that page of notes into music so fast. But I guess the point of the question is do you think you probably have easily 10,000 hours into this, wouldn't you say?
Well, I didn't get on the calculator. You did give me that question.
Yeah.
But I was going to answer that so I wasn't sure what the 10,000 hour
Never heard
rule.
of the 10,000 hour rule?
Not.
Gotcha. Okay.
But anyway, I will say that with me, I think, and I teach piano, so I think it either clicks or it doesn't click, and you pretty quickly know and it just always clicked with me.
Yeah.
I would say that the key is anybody that's like, when do I know that I'm going to be pretty good at this? If you want to sit down every day and do it. And I did.
Mm-hmm. Right.
From my first lesson, I wanted to sit down at the piano every single day.
Yeah.
And I did.
That's going to be my next question, actually, was about this idea of God-given talent, right? So I think some people, there's something I've been interested in. I've had this conversation with a lot of different people in a lot of different areas, but I've never had this. I don't think I've ever actually had this conversation with you. But the question is like, do you believe that God just gave you this talent to play piano, or do you think you just have a natural drive and interest in it that you spent so much time in it that you got good at it?
Oh, I think it's a combination of both. I think that you can definitely, like I said, I was born into a musical family. You can definitely see that genetics plays a huge part. I had an uncle that sang in a gospel choir, and I have recordings of his, my Uncle Tony, and just beautiful singing voice. My grandmother played the piano. So, and then there was, even on my mom's side of the family, there was a lot of talent that came through there. So I think the God-given talent is part of it. But I think because you have that God-given talent, then once you are introduced to that particular instrument or start singing, it's natural.
You find success in it, and it's interesting to you,
Absolutely.
And people think it's cool that you do it, so it makes you do it more.
Yep.
Yeah. Huh. That's interesting. I mean, it ties into, like, I've heard somebody talk about somebody who grew up next to Romeo Langford talking about how the kid was just always out there bouncing a basketball. I mean, He's just nonstop, and he just loved it so much that it wasn't even, it wasn't work for him. So he just,
That's right.
Just got better and better at it. So 35 years in teaching. That's a long time. 35 years all in Greater Clark. We talked to Scott Hawkins, who is creeping up on your number. He's close to, I think, coming up on 30 years of teaching. And asked him, what is your advice for someone looking to get into the field? Scott's answer was marry someone rich. So I was curious if you have any advice for someone either looking to, just teaching in general, or getting it, or music teaching, or anything along those lines.
Well, number one, I think, like you said, God-given talent for music. I think teaching is a God-given talent.
Sure.
I think it can be learned. I think that people, when they first get into the class, I've had lots of student teachers throughout the years, and I could tell, if this was like a God-given, a calling, something they really need to do. Now, that's not saying that we can't have wonderful, great teachers who had to work through maybe not having that natural gift, But that's part of those of us who stick with it for 35 years. I've seen plenty that couldn't wait to retire after the first 5 years.
Yeah.
But then get into it and say, I've got my pension. And so they stick with it. And others who can't imagine doing anything else. Right. Some of my best friends just kept teaching beyond me. The only reason I retired was my mom was sick and your granny. And it was getting to a time where I knew I could retire. So I was really hoping to spend about 5 good years. She was getting up there in years and needed my help. So, but I think that,
Yeah, that's actually along the lines of, I think that's something else Scott actually said too, was about the passion for teaching. You kind of have to have it to get through the tough sides. I mean, obviously you're not paid very much for being a teacher. So you got to have either a passion for the kids or for the subject matter or something, which I think honestly, I think you had both. I can't remember how many times we've housed kids or picked them up for concerts or, things like that, helping kids out along the way. So, yeah. So, another thing I had on here was, and this is kind of one of those questions I think I already know the answer to, I guess, but I know the particular line of teaching that you were in, it's kind of like coaching, where you have your teacher's hours, but then you've got, practices and things like that. 'Cause you did musical theater, you did the choirs, all those things. And I know it was pretty daunting, I guess, in terms of like how much time you had to spend out, which was great when me and Brad were in high school, because we were part of that too. But I know there were probably also times when we were younger where you were being drug away. So how do you suggest to manage, or how did you manage crazy hours like that and being away from the family as much as you were?
Oh, we women figure out how to do it. Your wife's very good at it too.
Yeah, she's pretty good at it.
I mean, you figure out things that you can do. I mean, there were times going back to when I taught middle school, I taught at River Valley and Parkview, and I traveled each day. Well, I'd swing by, pick up one, take to the sitter to preschool. You figure these things out. And the beautiful thing is, having vacations and summers off with your kids. So you make really special time during those times with your kids and you make it work. The beautiful part about mine was that you guys always kind of like doing those things too. We'd go to Kings Island for competitions and you guys got to go to Kings Island.
Or hang out at practices. I guess that was another perk of being a high school teacher is
That's right.
You basically had a ring of babysitters sitting around to either bring us with you to practices.
That's right.
I still get walked up to every now and then with somebody, I babysat you as a kid. And I'm like, I don't even remember. There were so many of them that I know. So, but yeah.
But they remember you.
So what would you say your favorite thing was about teaching over those years?
Oh my goodness. There were just times when, I enjoyed the younger kids. I started with 6th, 7th, and 8th, and that was when I was learning. I loved 6th graders, but some of my dearest friends and former students are from those classes that in the 80s when I started teaching, and I loved teaching those kids and just learning how to teach music.
Yeah.
But then when I finally made the decision to go to high school, that was a big one. That was tough because I did like teaching middle school. But I knew that job, John Cleveland had that job for 30 years, and I knew that was such a sought-after job that if I didn't take that, it may not come back open again. So, great decision.
And you were right, because John was there for how many years? And you were there for another 28.
Yeah, 28.
So, I mean, it's not...
That's right. So, but... when you teach those higher level kids, I guess it's like teaching coaching the varsity basketball team when those kids are just doing so many great things, or teaching theater. See, that's also been part of my career too, is the theater side of it. But watching what high school kids can do is amazing. I don't think there were times when people said we went and saw this at the Center for the Arts, and we think we might have enjoyed the one at Jeff better. And that wasn't just me saying, oh, we're so good. It was saying, yeah, this is amazing. We see this unfold. We see the talent come through on that stage that we're going to move on and be great talents, in the future. And the other thing is music, a piece of choral music, when it comes together and you've got 35 to 45 very talented singers making this happen. It's goosebumps.
Yeah.
And you think, wow, I'm pretty lucky to be able to do this. I really did feel that way. I really felt very, very fortunate because not everybody gets to do what they love to do.
Right.
And I did. So,
well, and I think you made really good connections too with the students you had. I mean, you were talking about how you started in 6th grade. I've noticed over the years that a lot of those, some of your first kids that followed you from middle school into high school are some of the ones I still see, to this day all the time that follow, kind of, I don't want to say follow you around, but they keep up with you, and you still have students. I mean, you got one living in Chicago that you visit. You got, so
that's right.
So there have been a lot of deep connections made through that time. So 2020, middle of COVID year, you retired. So what's
just in the nick of time?
Yeah, I've always thought it was funny. You retired.
That was a God
You retired
thing too,
mid-year,
I think.
and then school was out the whole second half of the year that year.
That's right.
But probably missed out on a lot of the crazy stuff after.
Well, there's
that
an
too.
interesting story that goes with that, because my former student Kyle Brody, who is at Jeff High now, extremely talented student. I saw him around retirement time and said, "What are you doing these days?" Because I was kind of scouting out. And, Julie Strait was my principal, and we were, looking for a pool of candidates and things. But Kyle said, well, he was a minister of music. Well, anyway, he moved in, interviewed, got the job, and moved his family from Somerset, Kentucky, changed careers.
Yeah.
And COVID hit.
Right.
I felt...
He's literally teaching choir through Zoom.
I felt horrible. And I really did. I was just so saddened by it. We were at the First Valley Choral Festival, and I got to see his kids perform, the Jeff kids. This was in March after I had retired in January. And he said, this isn't looking good, because it was right. I think Valley Choral was the Thursday before they shut school down on Monday.
Oh, wow.
And we had 600 kids in the room together, no masks.
Yeah.
And I said,
try getting them 6 feet apart.
Exactly. And I said, oh my, I said, he started talking about what was coming. I said, no, I've heard about that. But I said, it's going to be fine. It's always okay. It's going to be fine. It wasn't fine. It wasn't fine. Yeah. But he got through it. And that was a God thing too, because I can't imagine teaching on Zoom, what he did. Yeah. And the band director too, together, they managed to get through. It was miraculous what those kids did. Yeah. But he had a better feel for that.
Right.
Technology.
Yeah. Maybe that was the perfect, maybe that was a God thing, bringing in somebody younger, no offense, but somebody who has has the technology ability and all those things to get through that, because I'm sure that was crazy.
It was crazy.
What have you been up to since retirement?
Well, I retired from my school job, my teaching job, but I didn't retire from my church job. That's also been, I didn't say this back when we talked about things I did going from, accompanist in 7th grade and so forth. I always had, but when I turned 16, we were kind of church hunting. My mom and dad and myself, my sisters had moved out. But so we found this little church in downtown New Albany, which is close to us. We were living behind Providence, and Culbertson Baptist. And they said, how would you like to be paid to play the piano? I'm 16.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that'd be cool.
Whoa. I think it was $10 a week.
Yeah.
And I played for the Sunday night service. Yeah. And then I started teaching children's choirs, which these kids that you went to church with probably were in my little and their parents, were all involved in my programs. So I got the opportunity to learn to teach kids, in church and play the piano for church and choir direct. When I was in college, they needed interims, so I was able to help direct the choirs there. But I didn't retire from that job. I'm still doing that. So I love that. It's a small church. It's a wonderful, beautiful, active church. But my choirs are small, but really good. I have a great worship band of some extremely talented musicians. You know that. And you join us every once in a while on the drums. But I won't name names, but shout out to my worship band at Culbertson. And so when I started to reestablish what I wanted to do, had a lot more time on my hand. So Culbertson got a lot more of me.
Right.
And so established a children's choir there. It was quite small because we have a small congregation. But then came up with the idea, why don't we expand to the community? And I saw a need for choral music and singing. That we have some wonderful teachers in Greater Clark and Floyd County. Don't get me wrong, but they did shift from having college graduate music teachers. I know that was kind of an issue about 5-7 years ago. They changed to paras in the classroom.
Yeah, the funding wasn't there for the
funding.
arts,
Yeah,
basically.
they cut the funding. Floyd's done this for years, but I will tell you, Greater Clark is making it work. I'm so proud. Aaron Guernsey, who is the coordinator, is working beautifully with his elementary kids. So when I say there was a need for maybe even a little boost, a little extra choral singing that they weren't. Not all the music teachers in the classrooms are singers.
Yeah, right.
And sometimes they would be asked to teach art and music, and art was their special thing. So anything they can get to help and enhance.
Right.
So I saw an opportunity to help those schools, give those kids an opportunity to sing. And so we started Southern Indiana Children's Choir. But your son, my grandson, is in.
Sadly, about to age out.
I know.
But so Southern Indiana Children's Choir, you do it there. Most of the practices and performances are right there at Culbertson Baptist Church, which is, for anybody who doesn't know, is now used to be downtown New Albany. Now it's on the corner of Grant Line and Hossbelt.
Yes.
Or off Grant Line Road. So, how is anybody welcome to, like, what ages? How can people get involved? How much does it cost? That kind of thing.
Well, this is how we started the program. Aaron Guernsey from Greater Clark, I've also been doing a Martin Luther King celebration with the second graders of Greater Clark, which has been so much fun. This is my second year to do that. And that, I see all the kids and we put on this huge concert. Well, Aaron worked with me through that, and I said, what would you think if I started this? He goes, yes, 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 and yes, please. Because he saw that as a great opportunity for these kids to be able to sing. And so I said, how are we going to do this? So we started this year by recommending, each music teacher recommended a couple of kids from each grade. We ended up with about 50 kids. I also worked with the gal from Floyd County, and we've got some Floyd County students as well. We have some homeschoolers, and we have, I'm trying to think, a few private school kids, that don't go to Floyd and Greater Clark schools, but mostly all Southern Indiana kids, but homeschoolers welcome. What I'm saying now is contact me and let's talk about, listening to your child sing, see if they have a true interest in it. We will probably recruit the same way this year by having the music teachers. I would say if you have a child in a Floyd or Greater Clark school, talk to their music teacher because they will know about Southern Indiana Children's Choir. Gotcha. And, how we've heard about this. And what do you think about, do you think my child is ready or would be interested, and go that route? Okay. But we meet on Wednesdays. And we are performing. We've performed at Jeff High at the Gospel concert. That was fun. We performed in our church for our first concert, but we'll be at Charlestown High School for our spring concert, and we're going to be joining the Scallywags. Okay, cool. Yeah. So we're kind of mixing in. I have, a few connections after 35 years of teaching in Greater Clark. But, yeah. Cool. And then one last little thing I wanted to pitch for you before we get off here is, and you've left it out, but I wanted to help her out. You're selling Mary Kay now. Well, yes, thanks to your wife. Yeah. Not really. Katie, your wife Katie, was dabbling in Mary Kay to get the discount and to help some friends out and so forth. And she'd had enough. She had a few other things on her plate, just a few. And I said, I'm retired. I'll take over your little Mary Kay business. So I did. I took over Mary Kay business, and then got to a point where I thought, okay, I need to make some money doing this if I'm going to do it. And did I do have a website, don't I? Yeah, Mary Kay gives you a website. Yeah. And went with talked to Vicki O'Bannon about being my sponsor, and she says, oh, I was a godsend because she was having some health problems at the time, and said, I'd thank you so much for just coming to me.
Yeah.
And so I'm working. I have a little group on my Facebook page, and I've got a good little following of people that I sell to.
Long story short, she's one sale away from the pink Cadillac. So if you want to be, no, I'm joking. She doesn't do it quite at that level. But if you ever need a Mary Kay, reach out. She's willing to help you.
I know somebody.
Well, we're getting close to time here, so we're gonna wrap. I'm gonna throw in my one more little pitch here. We do this to hopefully sell houses to you guys. We're giving information. We sell houses, Adventure Realty. So if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in Southern Indiana or Louisville, give us a ring. Let us know. Facebook, social, email, whatever. I'm not hard to find. So, Mom, Leslie, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.